Sorcerers, with the Melbourne Crossroads next week and PAX Australia hot on its heels, we want to take a moment to shine a spotlight on the amazing artists who'll be joining us. Sorcery artist Brian Smith and Lindsey Crummett will be at both events, signing cards and selling prints. So today we're bringing you a laid-back conversation with one of those artists, Lindsey Crummett. Now this isn't a formal interview, it's more of a chance to get to know Lindsey, hear how she discovered sorcery, and just sharing her story. Think of it as pulling up a chair at the table with us. We hope you're able to enjoy the conversation, and we look forward to seeing you at our Australian events. Lindsey, thanks so much for coming on to talk with us.
My pleasure. Good to be here.
So now you're going to be making appearances at both the Crossroads Championship in Melbourne, Australia on October 8th and PAX Australia. And fans will no doubt be excited to meet the artists behind standout sorcery cards like the Ancient Dragon, Koi Nixie, Warhorse, which is always a player favorite. But for the upcoming Gothic set, you're continuing to expand your mark in the realm. And today we're going to be talking about Virgin in Prayer. So before we jump into that, though, you've got a career spanning, film, television, games, collectibles, including work on like The Hobbit and Avatar. So this isn't your first brush with epic fantasy. Can we talk a little about what's your origin story? How did you find your way to sorcery?
Origin story. How far back do you want to go?
Let's go. Let's get all the dirt.
So are we going to childhood here? No, I'll start professionally and say that how I initially sort of brushed paths with Eric and just how I got into working in the arts professionally. As soon as I finished college or university in California, I had my sights set on coming to New Zealand to work for Weta Workshop. And I'm the type that can be pretty bullheaded. If there's something I want to get done, I'll keep going for it. And so I moved over here before I even got the job. And my sister had moved here too. Here's a little extra bit of origin story for you. My first trip to New Zealand was in 2003, which meant I took the opportunity and was an extra on in Return of the King. so I was on set in Return of the King for Lord of the Rings for a couple of months, which was an absolutely amazing experience. I was an orc most of the time. That should explain some stuff to you. One of my most famous days was one day I was an orc trying to break into the kingdom at the Battle of Pelennor Fields. And then that same day I got changed out of my costume and was one of the Gondorian civilians running away from the orcs. So you're
basically living like 90% of our viewership's dream right here.
Yeah. I was dead set on coming and getting involved. And so once I saw the Wellington film industry, that's when I was still at university at the time. I was still deciding what I was going to do afterwards. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm going back to Wellington. I'm going to work for Weta Workshop. And so I did that. I eventually got the job there after much persistence and worked in many different departments. I started off in props. And so I learned how to do props making, weapons, lots of weapons making, and mold making. And then I moved eventually to sculpting, where I got to do prosthetics for a lot of different characters, but also some kind of maquettes, designs, a little bit of that. And but a lot on The Hobbit. And that was my whole goal, was to get to New Zealand by the time they were filming The Hobbit, so that I could work on The Hobbit behind the scenes. And so I did achieve that in the end. And so I did a lot of sculpting work on The Hobbit, did do prosthetic work for orcs and stuff like that. And then I did kind of transition to the design department as well, because some design happened in the sculpting department and some of it happened on computer in the design department. And so I learned how to do digital sculpting and a lot with Photoshop. And so I started doing a lot of digital work and a lot of design work that way, which is why I ended up, doing some design work for the Avatar sequels and stuff. I was still doing props for the first Avatar. And so I did a lot of gun making props, which was sort of amazing because they look a lot like the guns from Aliens, if you're very familiar at all.
Yeah.
That's like my all-time favorite film. aliens. And so, and James Cameron, obviously he loves that kind of aesthetic. So the guns from the first Avatar were very similar to the guns from Alien. So I was all over it. And but yeah, so I ended up working at Weta Workshop for a total of just over 10 years until I had my son, and I ended up taking a break at that stage. And funny enough, I'm trying to remember, I did a sculpt for Eric on Path of Exile, and it was like the Ranger sculpt, and that was the only kind of, he'd actually worked with my husband years before on Path of Exile, Andrew Baker, who's also a designer. He did heaps of stuff in The Hobbit as well. And so, but anyway, Andrew had worked with Eric a long time before that. So then I worked with him doing a sculpt. And then I think when he was looking around for artists for Sorcery, he just happened across my art station and all of my digital work was there, and one oil painting that I had done for myself that was, funny enough, was Seasoned Sellsword. That was
Ah.
that was a painting I had done for myself. I just kind of wanted to do this piece with a really cool, capable looking female warrior, and had done a painting. I exhibited it, and then I had it up on my art station. He was like, "Hey, that might work." So he contacted me and said he thought I might be a good fit. And we were up and running from there. I had very little experience with TCGs, and I'm just learning as we go, but just absolutely enjoying myself and learning all about it. Still determined, even though I have two little kids, that at some stage I'm going to learn to play because I really want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this sounds like, with all the events happening in Australia coming up in October, it sounds like, especially with PAX Australia, plenty of time to do some learn to play. So I think we're going to hold you to that. You're going to leave there. Since you're a master of apparently all these other things, I think we're going to unleash your talents into the TCG world as well with your newfound playability. So we'll get you there.
I'm up for it.
I mean, so really, you've done it all. It's just like, what? I guess maybe another question for another time is like, what aren't you good at? But we'll go, let's stick to the topic here first. So, obviously, the work you've done for Sorcery is fantastic, absolutely amazing, and I think it's interesting having that Seasoned Sellsword be that first piece. Let's talk about this piece that was just revealed for Gothic, which is Virgin in Prayer, which is kind of going to the more softer side, and even in the sea of Gothic is kind of a very different tone than what we've seen thus far. Let's dive into kind of your approach of that piece, because I know you've got skills with like digital sculpting you've used for some of your what are they called? Your the things you're going to base the drawings off of.
Yeah.
But in this case, you kind of took a different direction. Start us off. How did you go? What was the process behind creating this piece?
Yeah, cool. Thank you. It was definitely different. Like you said, I've mocked stuff up and used 3D models to light and set the scene so that I can, make everything compositionally the way I want and light it. And then I use that as reference when I paint. And so for this one, I definitely took a different approach because it's essentially like a character piece, right? And like Seasoned Sellsword, I wanted to find a model and use a photograph as opposed to doing a sculpt that's a human. And you want somebody who can really sort of emote and bring whatever feeling you're trying to bring to the piece. And so I actually got a good friend of mine to be the model. She did fantastically well. I went to her house and we set up a whole little area with a dark backdrop, and I had all these cloths that I brought along that I wanted to mock up, very much reminiscent of the classic Virgin in Prayer painting by Sassoferrato. And so I just wanted to set up and make sure that there was these classic. I had to even get cloth that was the right cloth that would drape the way I wanted it to. And so, and then I put it on her just so, pinned it in place, and then I had her on a swivel chair and kept on changing. I had natural light coming in one side, and then a different, a different type of light on the other side for an extra fill light. And I just kept turning her. I was just like, okay, now hold still. But turning her to find the right shadows so that it would be, the most classical and aesthetically pleasing. and we played with some different poses. And so I actually had a lot of photos to work from, and it was hard to decide when it came down to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I doctored them up a bit, and I went to Eric and asked his opinion too. I was like, which one of these are you leaning towards? Because, it was very fun. We had a lot of good photos because I kind of explained to the model, my friend, what it was about and the kind of feelings she was meant to be emoting, and she did so well. So I was able to
That's amazing.
capture that feeling I was looking for.
And so then you had to work through quite a few and make a final choice, obviously referencing with Eric as well. Because I always wonder, it's such a mystery, I think, for some of us that maybe don't have the talents that you seem to possess in spades. Is it that moment where you're like, oh, that's it? Like, I know, like, that's it. Or is it like, you're still looking at the spread and you're like, oh, I could have gone this way, could have gone that way. Especially with the TCG where the text box is going to fill the bottom of the card. Like, that sometimes throws off the composition.
No, it can do. And actually, they were all very compositionally similar, the ones I had, because they were just meant to, you want for this one, because it's such a character piece, it's the soft piece where it's meant to be this almost innocence, this innocence and this goodness that's almost fighting the evil that's present in the world of Gothic. and
Yeah.
you want to hone in on her face and the feeling that she's having while she's praying. And so it was always going to be a close-up, and I wanted to play with color, and that kind of sets the mood and the tone as well. But it was more that there was more than one original piece by Sassoferrato, that the Virgin in Prayer. There's one where she's looking up, that's more similar to the one that you see. And then there's one where a very famous one, even more famous, where she's looking down. And so I played with both of those, and they both turned out amazing, and I could not make a decision. And so, I think Eric helped me with a final call on that one, and it was good that we went with what we went with, because I do think that you needed to kind of see the soul in her eyes, which was a big part of it.
Well, that's fantastic. And so now you set the stage with the model taking the shots, and you've got that mock-up that you're going to use. When you start then actually creating, is the kind of mood already set, or are there things like listen to music or things you do to kind of like stay in that space as you're creating? Like, what does the actual creation process look like?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And for this one, I actually really did listen to a lot of music while I was painting. I don't always, sometimes I watch shows or movies or listen to podcasts. And then sometimes it's music. And for this one, it was definitely music. and I'll include a link somewhere, because I want to give them a shout out anyway. There's these lovely girls that do. I found them on Instagram, that they sing a cappella, and they often will go to places like churches that have really amazing resonance, and they'll go just the two of them sing a cappella in these, sometimes outside, but often in churches. And there was this one they were singing, and there was stained glass behind them, and they were singing, trying to remember the name of it. It was Noel something, but it was just the harmonies they do is just gorgeous. Also, a little bit sad, a little bit haunting, but very beautiful. And so it was exactly the kind of feel I was going for. And it's not that long of a piece of music, but I just put it on loop. I had it on for so long, and it just put me in a certain headspace and kind of really helped me stay in that headspace. But anyway, sorry, the name of the girls, they're called the Woogies, WOO.
Woogies.
Yeah, GIES, I think. I'll look it up. But they're just really gorgeous singers. And so, that's what I listen to on loop.
Well, now I'm going to be thinking about looking at your other pieces and being like, I wonder what she was thinking, or like what she was listening to or watching while she was painting, Ancient Dragon or Koi Nixies, or now that you're doing podcast shows and music, but maybe another time on those.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, we know that you're well-versed with oils. What makes that your go-to medium for painting? Is there any particular element about that you enjoy using when you create?
I really love oil, and even though I've still tried a little bit with gouache and acrylic. I keep experimenting and then just coming back to oil hardcore because there's something about how long it takes to dry, which can be an annoyance to some painters, especially if you're really like well planned and you want to, really swatch your colors first, mix them, and then, apply them on canvas. Then acrylic can be a really good go-to. But I love being able to work into something and like I'm a very like ADD type sculptor where I'll like paint a bit here and then a bit here and then like, I don't do one area and move out. I'll just, whatever it takes my fancy in the moment, I'll start painting there. And oil is lovely because it stays wet for a long time, long time. And you can mix on the canvas, and that's something I really love. And so I'll have a base color that I lay down. And so a lot of the colors that I start painting onto that base color will even start to mix in with it. And it just sort of creates a cohesive color balance throughout. And I love the ability to kind of, like I said, mix on the canvas. It's just sort of, it makes for a more intuitive painting for me than planned out, because I'm not as much like that.
Well, it's working. Whatever you're doing is working because it's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
And I think I'm going to ask with every piece with Gothic, I feel like I kind of end up asking people this question. Gothic is such a darker set, but then we do have these rays of light as well and hope. So on the sort of spectrum of good and evil, like, are you on team evil? Are you on team good? Where do you fall on that? Where do you pledge your allegiance?
Ooh, that remains to be seen.
Fair enough.
That's so hard to say because I have some favorite pieces, even outside of this one, where Team Good that I really enjoyed, and then there was definitely some darker ones in there that I really enjoyed working on too. And
do you do them? Do you have to switch out the music then? Do you go from like listening for like weeks of just like music to then like darker like evil music? Is that?
Oh yeah, and it depends on what the piece is. Listening to a bit of Tool that always helps with certain pieces.
Oh, I think I know what piece you're talking about. I feel like I can match that up to some of your yet to be revealed ones. So good.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, definitely change up on music. Sometimes certain movies will be really good to revisit, and yeah, I think I've mentioned I really love a good villain. I'm a big fan of villains, just when they're executed well and they're well-rounded. You understand why they're a villain, but there's something kind of likable about them as well. So I do love delving into the dark sides of things, even though there was some. I love the innocence and the kind of beautiful characters that are fighting against it. You need both.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and I sort of mentioned from the time I was a little kid. I was 5 years old when I think I was watching scary films at far too young an age, but like, for example, I loved the movie Legend when I was a little kid, 1985 with Tom Cruise, and Darkness and.
Yep.
Amazing designs in that film, and I think it really got in my head and stuck with me for a long time after that. And Darkness, who's the big kind of like demon baddie in the movie, I just remember as a kid thinking he was like, I knew he was bad, but I'm like, oh, but he's so cool, and I memorized his monologue, his opening monologue. He goes off on one about Mother Night, and I memorized it when I was 5 years old and decided it was a good idea to recite it to my grandmother and terrified her. So but so on that note of talking about good and evil and light and dark, Darkness says at the end of the movie, he says, "What is light without dark? I'm a part of you all." So it's like you have to have both to be able to appreciate the other. So I definitely like to put on a different hat every time I work on a different type of piece and kind of play in that area and then play in that area. So Gothic was really fun because I got to definitely play both fields.
Absolutely. And I think more on that to come in the future.
Yeah.
But actually, speaking of the future then, you're going to be at the Crossroads event in Australia. It's going to be a major player gathering for people in the Asia Pacific region. And then also at PAX Australia. You said you're kind of new to the TCG world. what are you most excited about when it comes to attending those events and seeing your fans?
Well, um, it's interesting. Like the only experience I have really meeting fans so far has been at a tournament in Melbourne last year. I went to a tournament there, and it was my first experience going to a tournament, seeing how they work, and I just kind of was present to do signings and had some APs and stuff like that. So, but I've definitely feel like it's a wonderful experience because you have some people when you post work online and stuff, you have some people that are very vocal, very you know forthcoming with saying that they like your work, and that's a wonderful feeling. But actually at the tournaments when people are like getting signatures, you meet so many people that aren't very vocal maybe online, that you never knew what something that you did, a piece of yours, meant to somebody. And like I remember in Melbourne last year, it was definitely a highlight for me that like somebody brought up their son who was maybe like 9, and he had a poster of Ancient Dragon, and he was like, oh, he was so shy, and his dad was like, "Oh, it's his favorite art piece in the game. Could we get a signature?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And it was like I could see the look on his face, and it reminded me of me as a kid, when how much I loved anything that I loved, anything fantasy based. I was just I couldn't get it enough. And so to feel like I had like inspired somebody else, and a kid was so excited to get a signature, and I could meet somebody that I wouldn't have met online, it was a wonderful experience. So I'm looking forward to more of that.
Yeah, I think, not to proselytize a little bit here, but I think that's one of the things that's so cool about Sorcery and all the hand painted art that our artists do, like yourself, that it's transformative, right? You get like taken to another world when you look at one of these cards, and it's like, especially I love like the foils of the full art backsides, like Koinixie. You've got this beautiful Koinixie, and then you see the full art, and there's like the skeletons in the water, and there's like that darker side, and immediately like you're transported into your imagination and these stories, and just so evocative. So thank you so much on behalf of Eric's Curiosa, and I'll say maybe on the community, for lending your talents and helping transport everyone to this magical world. And I know you're taking us places in Gothic, so people buckle up. And for all those outspoken people, but also maybe those quiet people out there who are not able to attend PAX Australia, leave some love down in the comments below. For Lindsey, let us know some of your favorite pieces from her. And then for everyone else who's able to make it to the Crossroads and PAX Australia event in October, come by, say hi, visit Lindsey at the event and at our PAX Australia booth. And, we can't wait to see you all. Absolutely. And Lindsey, thanks so much for coming on.
No, thank you so much for having me. And I'm really, really happy to be a part of the sorcery community, and just nothing but humbled by the other artists that are on the project and everybody working behind the scenes. So, and yeah, like I said, fans are just amazing in this crowd. So thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. And like I said, we look forward to seeing you in October at those events. So people, don't be strangers. Make sure you say hi. And of course, they can also follow you on your socials. And we got lots of good things coming. So you'll expect more Lindsey Crummett in the future.
Thank you, Chase.
All right. Yeah, of course. All right. Until next time.
Until next time.